be the sardine, basically, who wants to explain the underground church.
I got it.
Not good.
Yeah, so one of the most inspiring things, truly, if you guys are going through it, think of this. So the captain for the Colorado Avalanche had a knee injury. One of the ice skates cut his knee, opened in a ton of ligaments, and we were doing really well that season. So they just kind of stitched it back together. They did basically a Band-Aid solution. Well, that's the year we won the Stanley Cup, so it ended up working out, but he still had some knee discomfort. So he went to go get it checked, and the tissue in his kneecap, in his meniscus, was just gone. It didn't exist anymore. So he had to do a complete, tissue transplant to his knee, but here was the kicker. No one in any professional sport had ever come back from this injury. So if this happened to you and you needed this procedure, it was game over. That was the end of your career. Hope you had a great time playing your sport. Well, our captain took that as a challenge. He said, what people think is impossible, I'm going to try to make possible. So now, 3 years later, after intense rehab and surgeries and practices and setbacks, he is now playing tonight for the Colorado Avalanche and is the first athlete in any professional sport ever to make a return from this injury. Y'all, I don't know about you, I find that incredibly inspiring. So if you're going through a tough time right now, I encourage you to Google Gabriel Landeskog. If you want some help spelling that name, find someone that likes hockey, that you think likes hockey, or ask me, go Google, read his story. It's incredibly inspiring. If he can go through that, we can too. You're new to Christianity, whether you've grown up coming to church here, we're still figuring out, or you're still figuring out what to believe, what baptism is. Is it mysterious? Is it a tradition? Is it just a thing with water? What does it actually mean? So, I want to share this brief blurb with you. Baptism is a visible sign of an invisible grace. So something that we visibly see, but is invisibly happening. All right? Everybody say visible. Visible. Everybody say invisible grace. Invisible grace. Awesome. That's amazing. So it is a symbol that someone belongs to Jesus and becomes a part of the body of Christ, which is here the church. It's something bigger than ourselves. It's something bigger than you, and it's something much bigger than me. When somebody is baptized, they now belong to Jesus and a global family of believers. Not just here in Boulder, it's not just here in Colorado or in Canada, but worldwide. Worldwide. And if you haven't been baptized, it's not too late. All right? Baptism is a beautiful way to say, I'm in, and I trust Jesus, and I want to follow him. Baptism is less about what you do and what you've done. It's about what God has done for you. Can I get an amen? Amen. Everybody, please give a warm welcome to Kadyn.
Okay, hi guys. If you don't know me, my name's Kadyn. I'm currently a sophomore at CU, and I am also the part-time intern here at Club. If you would have told me when I was in high school that I'd be working at a church right now, I'd probably laugh and not believe you, because I was definitely not the person I am today. Like most testimonies go, I was raised in a Christian home, more like half a Christian home. My mom would take me to church and Sunday school, and I went to youth group, but my dad never went to church, usually just on holidays, and then on the way home, somehow my parents would always argue on the way home from church. So we never really went together, it was just me and my mom. I grew up, when I was born, my parents were young and they really just were trying their best. They weren't married and they were both in their early 20s, so they had no idea what they were doing, and they would really fight about anything and everything. And I thought that was normal. I was just a kid, and it was really the norm for me, and I wouldn't say it was bad, it was just a little chaotic. I lived following the principles of religion, but I never really had a personal relationship with God. I never understood the extent of what Jesus really did on the cross. My life didn't really feel that interesting until in 2017, I was in 7th grade. I finally figured out why my parents were always fighting, which was my dad has a drinking problem. They were always arguing about it. It was a big secret in my family. We didn't really tell anybody, but in 2017, I saw my dad hospitalized twice from his drinking, and I began to discover just how bad that everything was in my family. And then the summer before my 8th grade year was the first time my dad went to rehab. I remember feeling so lost and confused and ashamed. I felt like I had no one to turn to, and I kept everything bottled up from my friends, and I isolated myself. I turned to God for the first time that year, not really knowing what to do or what to say to him, but just starting with prayer, since I had nobody else to talk to. And a few months later, I saw my dad sober for the first time, and the next few years were good. And I thanked God every day for what he did and for my dad's sobriety. It wasn't until COVID in 2020, my dad began to drink again, which began a dark couple of years for me. I watched my dad become unrecognizable and a shell of the man he once was. I turned my back on God that year. I couldn't comprehend how a good God would let this happen to my family again, and this time so much worse. I began searching for ways to fill the void in my life, not knowing that it was there because I turned my back on Jesus. And I tried to stay distracted from anything and everything going on at home. Going into high school, most of my high school years were focused on doing everything you're not really supposed to do in high school. I was partying whenever I could. I surrounded myself for people who were really bad influences, and I became just a part of that crowd that nobody really wants to be in or should be in. I fell into habits that were self-destructive and damaging, just like I saw my dad do. I lost any care for my well-being, and I was finding every temporary fix just to try to make it through. My grades began to drop, I got in trouble with my mom, and even the cops. However, none of that was enough to wake me up from the dark tunnel I was in. By my senior year of high school, I totally lost who I was, and I watched my dad go to rehab for the second time. And I watched rehab fail, again for the second time. I felt abandoned by everyone again, even more this time, including God. I watched myself turn into the mess my parents were, and looking back from where I stand today, God was really the only thing keeping me alive and looking out for me during that time, because I don't think I should be standing here today, much less talking in a church. Eventually I went to college and I realized partying wasn't fixing any of my problems, it was just making it all worse. When I went to college, I thought it would be a way to get away from home and then it would solve all my problems. Unfortunately, that's not what happened, and it usually doesn't happen that way. My problems actually got worse. In the middle of my freshman year of college, my mom finally decided to divorce my dad. And in the middle of my freshman year of college, I had to cope with my parents getting divorced, me moving out of my childhood home because of that, and ultimately my dad going to rehab for the third time. This was probably the lowest few months of my life. There were weeks I couldn't get out of bed or go to class. However, there was one thing I would get out of bed for, and that was Annex and freshman Bible study. I originally went to the Annex for the first time from a recommendation from my youth group leader. I was going to go once and never go again, just to say I went, just to say I tried it. But for some reason, I went more than once. The next thing I knew, I was going every week, twice a week, Mondays for Bible study, Tuesdays for Annex. And it was the only place I could get away from my life falling apart. I even found myself praying for the first time. Even more than that, I saw my prayers being answered. Slowly but surely, I saw that God was actually good through the annex. And on the annex spring break of 2024, I finally met God on a personal level. My life didn't get easier when I committed to God and when I started my personal relationship with Him. And nothing at home got better or easier. In fact, my dad's gone to rehab again since then. But my life did get overall better. I met people who showed me unconditional love and who didn't judge me for who I was and what I've done. Every day I see parts of my past healed and I receive forgiveness from Jesus that I didn't even think was possible. Once I finally accepted Jesus and really comprehended what He did on the cross for me, all of the guilt and shame I've carried throughout my life fell away. I was able to forgive myself and forgive the people in my life who have hurt me, like my dad. And that was all just from the strength that the Lord has given me. I met people in the annex who did not judge my past, and they loved me unconditionally with no ifs, ands, or buts. I've literally been made new from who I once was, and I can't even recognize the person I was in high school. Regardless of who I was, though, God was always there for me, and as He's there for each one of you, no matter how dark it gets or no matter how far you stray. As 2 Timothy 2:13 says, if you are faithless, He remains faithful, for He cannot deny Himself. And if any of you have had a similar story of, feeling like you've been made new, going through, like Alan said, this just getting washed clean, I would really highly recommend considering getting baptized so you can show just your friends in the world that the power Jesus has in your life. And yeah, that's all I got.